Declaration from the stars. The stars blinked like watchful eyes over the orbiting United Nations Stellar Command. Suspended above Earth in a cradle of glass and steel, the flagship Valkyrie's spear drifted in silence until the galaxy screamed. The broadcast struck every channel across known space, overriding civilian and military systems alike. Screens flared, and a towering figure appeared. Xarnathi, ancient, clad in armor that shimmered with artificial gravity fields and status sigils. Its voice carried the weight of empire, slow and precise, like a blade drawn across stone. We are the Xarnathi Empire. For 80,000 years, we have ruled the stars. You, primitive, chaotic, fleshborn, dared to expand beyond your cradle. Now you face judgment. Humanity shall be corrected. Surrender or be purged. A second of silence. Then General Aveline Cross laughed. Not a chuckle, not a scoff. A rich, amused, belly-deep laugh that startled the bridge officers. She was seated alone in the forward command chair, coffee mug steaming beside her. Her silver-streaked hair was tied back in a no-nonsense knot, uniform immaculate, expression unreadable behind a smirk. They really rehearsed that, didn't they? She said, setting her mug down. 80,000 years of rule, and that's their opening move? Drama school must be mandatory in that empire. The crew didn't know whether to laugh or not, so they stared. Across the bridge, Admiral Nyek tapped her tablet nervously. Ma'am, this is serious. The Xarnathi have wiped out entire species for less. Aveline's tone stayed dry. I'm counting on it. The Admiral blinked. Counting on it? Yes. I've been waiting for this declaration for 5 months. Ever since they noticed our colonies in the Xanthus Gap. She stood, her boots clicking on the reinforced floor, voice carrying across the command deck like gravity. They're not attacking because we're weak. They're attacking because they've realized we aren't afraid. The war room flickered to life. A dozen admirals and planetary defense officers appeared via holofeed, their faces pale, some shouting over one another. General Cross, are we mobilizing full defense across the Arc Belt? Do we recall our off-world expeditions? We can't repel a full Xarnathi fleet. Enough, Aveline said, raising one hand. The room fell quiet. She walked to the tactical display. A map of human-controlled space lit up, 43 settled systems, dozens of research outposts, 3 major bastion worlds. She zoomed out. The Xarnathi Empire's territory stretched across the spiral arm like a black stain, 5,000 systems wide. We are not going to outmuscle the Xarnathi, she said. We won't match their numbers or their dreadnoughts. What we will do is what humans have always done when threatened by empires. Make ourselves too costly to conquer. She tapped a sequence in her datapad. Red icons lit up along key gravity wells, asteroid belts, and unstable jump corridors. We've seeded over 80 ambush nests over the past year. Stealth mines, EMP clouds, interference drones. We knew this was coming. And now we make them bleed for every kilometer they cross. There was silence, then a low murmur of approval. What's the order, General? Asked one fleet commander. Phase 1 begins immediately. Activate forward shadow fleets. Evacuate non-essential personnel from colonies near the fringe, but leave decoys behind. We're going to bait them in. Nyek stared at her. You're going to taunt the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Aveline turned, smile faint. I'm going to show them why every species they've crushed before isn't us. The War Council dispersed with orders in hand. Chaos replaced by grim coordination. The Xarnathi message played on in the background, its thunderous rhetoric now almost comical against the brisk efficiency of humanity preparing for war. Later, alone on the bridge, Aveline returned to her chair. Outside, Earth's blue glow shimmered beneath the orbital glass, serene and vulnerable. A junior officer approached timidly. General, if I may ask, what if you're wrong? What if they can't be stopped? She sipped her coffee again and didn't look away from stars. Then we make sure they never forget what it cost them. The first strike, they came like gods. 500 Xarnathi warships shimmering out of hyperspace. blotting out the stars as they emerged above the mineral-rich colony of Tethra Prime. 5 dreadnoughts led the fleet, their hulls forged from neutron-forged alloy, weapons capable of vaporizing moons. To the Xarnathi, this was a warning shot, a demonstration, nothing more than a cosmic slap on the wrist. They expected surrender within the hour. Instead, they found silence. From her command deck aboard Valkyrie's spear, General Aveline Cross watched the sensor feed with clinical calm. Around her, holographic projections of the battlefield pulsed in red and blue. Enemy signatures, asteroid drift patterns, and scattered heat signatures painted across the 3D display. Admiral Nyek, status? Nyek responded from the Hammerfall, one of the lead cruisers in the Hidden Fleet. Enemy fleet is in position. They're deploying ground-ready dropships. No sign of formation discipline. They think we're already broken. Aveline nodded. Let's introduce them to disappointment. Signal Black Lance units. Operation Maelstrom is go. Out in the asteroid field surrounding Tethra Prime, the trap sprang. Dozens of dormant human stealth frigates powered up in perfect synchronicity. They had been lying in wait for 3 days, masked by the dense, iron-rich rocks and electromagnetic interference from the surrounding debris. The first volley of kinetic spears tore through the Xarnathi rearguard, puncturing their hulls before their shields fully deployed. Explosions lit up the void like miniature suns. Chaos erupted. Xarnathi captains barked orders in their guttural tongue, trying to coordinate a response. But the moment they lit up their command network, they triggered the next phase. A pulse wave bomb detonated in the center of their fleet, a human-designed quantum interference weapon that temporarily collapsed digital communications. Fleet-wide silence. On the human side, it was anything but quiet. Target lock on Dreadnought Alpha confirmed. Firing Gravlance. Impact in 6 seconds. Enemy attempting to reposition. Permission to deploy drones. Granted, Aveline said. Let the swarm fly. Thousands of AI-guided drones launched from hidden hangars, too small to be individually targeted, too fast to catch. They latched onto enemy ships, burrowing through armor and planting microscopic fusion charges. The sky bloomed with fire. A Xarnathi warship tried to escape the trap, angling toward the planet's upper atmosphere. Before it could stabilize, a cluster of asteroid-mounted railguns fired in sequence. A series of 6-ton projectiles caved in the ship's hull, snapping it like a twig. Admiral Nyek's voice crackled back through the feed. Their formation's breaking. I count at least 60 vessels down. They're in full retreat. Negative, Aveline said. Don't let them leave. No survivors. There was a moment of hesitation, but Nyek gave the order. Human ships surged forward, cutting through the crippled fleet. Precision strikes, no wasted effort. When the last Xarnathi dreadnought detonated, a cheer erupted across the human comms. Aveline didn't smile. Not yet. She turned her aide. Prepped the message. Within an hour, a new broadcast went live. Galactic networks that had once shown the Xarnathi declaration now displayed something far more shocking. A single human woman seated in a command chair, casually sipping coffee. Behind her, the wreckage of Xarnathi dreadnought burned in orbit. Strongest empire in the galaxy? Aveline said, voice calm, sardonic. I've seen more spine in a Martian sandworm. She leaned forward slightly. We're not your next conquest. We're your next mistake. The message looped across the stars. Within days, dozens of neutral species picked it up, passing it among themselves with disbelief and admiration. The impossible had happened. The Xarnathi lost. Badly. On the galactic fringe, underground resistance cells cheered. In the depths of corporate-run trade stations, merchants began rewriting their contracts, rebalancing toward Terran favor. And on Xarnathi Prime, the High Lords watched the footage in stunned silence, jaws clenched, eyes burning. They had underestimated humanity. Worse, they had underestimated her. Back on the Valkyrie's spear, Aveline finally allowed herself a smile. Let them come, she murmured. We've only just started. Fire and shadow. The Xarnathi did not retreat. They recalibrated. Their first defeat, an insult carved across the annals of their unbroken history, had lit a fire in the High Council. Pride wounded, They summoned what they called the Judgment Armada, 3,000 warships, 10 dreadnoughts, and one world ender. The Vorak, a mobile fusion core designed to sterilize planets from orbit. Its target, New Dresden, humanity's jewel in the outer colonies. General Aveline Cross studied the fleet's trajectory from the command center deep inside Earth's lunar defense complex. Unlike last time, the Xarnathi weren't broadcasting their approach. No declarations, no posturing, just pure, cold strategy. "Time to arrival?" she asked. 5 days, replied Admiral Nyek. "They're coming through the Jorin corridor." "Good," Aveline said. "We've been waiting." She turned to her chief of intelligence. "Status of Shadow Protocol?" The agent, an unassuming man in civilian clothing, nodded once. "Infiltrators are in place. Saboteurs aboard 2 dreadnoughts and the Vorak. Coordinated sabotage set for T-4 hours before contact." It had taken years to seed operatives inside Xarnathi space, synthetic life forms indistinguishable from their original human templates. Artificial souls wrapped in flesh, not entirely alive, but loyal beyond death. The galaxy would never understand how far humans were willing to go to survive. Aveline's face hardened. "Make sure they understand the stakes. If they fail, there's no second chance." 4 days later, the Xarnathi fleet blinked into local space, right into hell. It started small. The second dreadnought veered off course, its thrusters misfiring. Then another suffered a cascade failure in its gravity stabilizer, flipping sideways into a collision course with a cruiser. Screams echoed across intercepted comms. Then the Vorak's shield core detonated from the inside. The reaction was instant chaos. The center of the fleet fragmented, leaving a vulnerable opening. That's when Aveline struck. "Deploy the net," she ordered. Hidden along the corridor's gravitational folds were a series of pulse beacons. When activated, they released an artificial gravity wave, folding localized space just enough to shift real space trajectories. The Xarnathi found themselves pulled toward the dying husk of a collapsed neutron star masked by a projection field. The Third Battle of Jorin wasn't fought with brute force. It was fought with gravity manipulation, stealth ordnance, and psychological dismemberment. Human frigates emerged from the shadows, striking surgically. Railgun shots pierced engines. EMP torpedoes shut down navigation. Drones overloaded point defense arrays. Every Xarnathi countermeasure had already been mapped, simulated, and undermined. On the bridge of the Valkyrie's spear, Aveline stood without expression, watching the red dots vanish one by one. "Confirmed destruction of the Vorak," she said. "Confirmed," Nyek replied. "And, General, we're receiving a new transmission from within the Xarnathi fleet." On screen, the display lit up with the face of a Xarnathi noble, tall, regal, proud, even in defeat. His voice trembled but did not waver. This is not war. It is annihilation. You are not a species. You are a plague." Aveline looked directly into the feed. "And you thought we were livestock. Now you realize we've been hunters all along." The transmission ended with the explosion of the noble ship. Self-destruct. Later, as the fleet cleared the battlefield and search and rescue teams combed debris for survivors, Aveline walked alone through the observation deck. Below, the black star glowed faintly, a silent witness to the battle. Admiral Nyek approached quietly. "Victory, General, but at what cost?" Aveline didn't respond at first. Her fingers rested on the railing, eyes distant. "I ordered people to die before the enemy even arrived," she said. "Good people, shadow operatives who won't be remembered by name. That's the cost." Nyek frowned. "You've saved billions. Humanity owes you everything." Aveline's voice dropped to a whisper. "They don't owe me. They owe the lie that we're better than the monsters we fight." Nyek didn't know what to say. Aveline turned, steel returning to her gaze. "Prepare the next move. The Xarnathi aren't finished, and neither are we." Across the galaxy, the Xarnathi High Council met in private. Fear had crept in, quiet and insidious. Their enemy was not a civilization. It was an idea, a fire that would not die, a shadow they could no longer escape, the laugh that broke an empire. The Xarnathi Empire bled. Across the stars, their dread fleets retreated into defensive positions. Their border worlds went silent, hunkered behind ancient shields that had not been activated in centuries. For the first time in 80,000 years, the great empire feared extinction. And at the center of that fear was one woman, General Aveline Cross. She stood before the United Stellar Council, flanked by admirals and diplomats, her presence more commanding than the vast chamber itself. Holograms of burning wreckage, shifting star maps, and intercepted Xarnathi transmissions floated above the curved table. 3 systems liberated. 1 dreadnought captured. Their forward expansion has collapsed, an aide reported. Aveline barely nodded. Her mind was already 2 steps ahead. The Xarnathi were not finished. Not yet. A wounded beast bites hardest. President Halvorsen of the Mars Coalition leaned forward. General, many among the council believe now is the time for peace. To send envoys. Open negotiations. Murmurs rippled through the delegates. Aveline's voice cut through the chamber like a razor. You think peace is an option? We are 1 battle away from extinction. If we offer our hand now, they will take our wrist, and then our throat. An ambassador from the Seldari Protectorate stood. General, with respect, you mock their power, but this enemy once conquered galaxies. If they regroup, they won't, Aveline said, because they no longer believe they can win. She tapped her datapad. A secure feed opened. Xarnathi internal footage, gathered through fractured spy networks and captured data cores. The delegates watched as Xarnathi generals shouted in disarray, as noble houses argued over defensive protocol, as one ancient High Lord slammed his staff down and shouted the word cross like it was a curse. But it was the last clip that silenced the room. A single Xarnathi soldier, armor scorched, blood on his hands, staring into a recording drone. They say she laughed when we declared war. Laughed. We brought fire from the stars. And she answered with amusement. What kind of people find humor in annihilation? The recording ended. Aveline closed the feed and addressed the room, her voice steady. They fear me not because I'm cruel, but because I do not fear them. And that, counselors, is how you break an empire that only understands obedience. There are no more interruptions. That night, alone aboard the Valkyrie's spear, Aveline stood at the viewport, watching Earth rotate far below. Lights shimmered along the continents like a heartbeat. The planet was still safe for now. Nyek approached quietly. It's done. The Council has granted full operational command for the next phase. You have their trust. Aveline gave a soft, dry laugh. For now, Nyek hesitated, then asked, why did you laugh back then, when they first declared war? Aveline took a moment before answering. Because I knew something they didn't. What's that? She turned from the window, eyes hard as ship steel. That humanity is the only species in this galaxy that grew up fighting itself. For millennia, we learned war in the mud, in the ash, in the cold silence of vacuum. They think strength comes from control. But she tapped her chest once. We're chaos refined. That's not something they can conquer. Nyek nodded slowly. And now, Aveline's voice turned quiet. Now we push the knife in. The operation was codenamed Laughing Blade. A coordinated strike on 4 critical Xarnathi systems, supply hubs, AI coordination cores, and the ancient archive world of Varnus, their cultural heart. The missions weren't massive assaults. They were surgical, precise, devastating. On Varnus, a small human commando team led by synthetic operatives walked through the silent halls of the Great Archive. They planted neural bombs, not to destroy the data, but to scramble it, rewrite history in patterns the Xarnathi couldn't decipher. When the explosions hit, 80,000 years of cultural continuity fragmented in seconds. On the homeworld of Xarnathi Prime, citizens watched in horror as their skies filled with strange lights, not bombs, but holographic projections of Aveline Cross laughing. A symbol, a legend, a weapon. Within a month, the empire fractured. Several vassal species revolted. Entire fleets mutinied. The High Council imploded, half its members vanishing in purges. And in the void left behind, humanity rose, not as conquerors, but as the ones who had dared to laugh at a god and lived. Aveline sat once more in her command chair, watching the galactic map shift before her. They called us primitive, she said to no one. Now they call us impossible. She raised her coffee to her lips, took a slow sip, and whispered, "Good.